Welcome, everyone. Yeah, we're jamming out to that music, and I just hit the mic. Off to a great start. Welcome, everyone, to episode 17 of
1-7.
right 1-7 of the Eyes and Ears live stream slash podcasts. Also, this is available anywhere you can get your podcasts. I want to mention that in every episode now. But
Yay.
yeah, this is episode 17. It's kind of a little different. We're going to be talking about some trade show experiences, some expo experiences that we've had, and kind of try to answer the question, is it important for like a general consumer or just a consumer that's interested in the field of like audio, home theater, audio visual to go to these expos and shows? And yeah, that's kind of like why we're here. And one of the main reasons is I will be going to Audio Advice Live next week. Elon, you've kind of talked to me a little bit. Can we mention something that else that you might go to coming up
Oh,
in maybe
sure. It's
September?
it's only about 5 weeks, so yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So Cedia 2024. Elon will be hopefully there. I'm also looking at going of my own volition, my own accord.
Mhm.
Audio Advice Live, I'm going with Gene Della Sala. I'll be shooting videos for him primarily while I'm there, but I will be trying to do stuff for myself. Yeah, but I figured, all of these expos and events are different in many ways. I mean, there's obviously like a lot of commonality between all of them. They're all similar in many regards, but some of them are a little more intimate, I guess you could say.
Mhm.
M-Wave comes to mind, which is primarily, I mean, it's just Midwest. That's why it's in the name, Midwest. And I've been there the previous year, so we can talk about that. But before we even dive in and get started, Elon, what's been going on, man? It's been a couple weeks since we've
Yeah, right off the
this
bat,
been.
apologies to all, since we have been a little bit sporadic with this podcast/live stream during the summer. But, I mean, I guess from here on out, just kind of expect that for summertime for, 2025, 2026, since we'll be doing this podcast for 10 years. But anyway,
I never signed
uh,
up for that, so we're
I
on.
know. Who knows what the future will hold?
Who knows?
But yeah, summertime is just it's a bit crazy around here, at least in my neck of the woods. Not only due to just either family vacations or just other things going on other than the YouTube channel, but also the heat. We're still We've had record heat here in Northern California, and it's really put a strain on our off-grid solar system. So we're still learning
Yeah,
how to kind of fight the heat. I actually just ordered, because we have a little solar shed where all of our solar equipment is, and it
yeah,
lives apart. It's not part of the house. It's closer to the solar panels themselves.
hmm,
So in order for those inverters and everything to function properly, it has to stay within a certain temperature threshold. And a few weeks ago, we had a record 119 degrees. So that particular day, our house just decided to die for a little bit, and we had to kind of restart some things and
yeah,
try and cool things down because yeah, it just doesn't like to work when the shed itself is, 120 plus degrees.
yeah,
So since then, I've actually ordered a new, with the Prime Day deals that came and went. I ordered a new like portable air conditioner that is going into the shed itself. Because the one we currently have in there just sometimes just the compressor just stops working. So
mm,
like yesterday, it just decided to stop working. So about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, all the lights went out because it got too hot in there because the air conditioner itself was just blowing hot air onto our inverters. So
that sounds great. Um,
yeah,
yeah,
it,
that sounds. Man, yeah, 'cause you basically I remember you telling me about your power issues and the
Mm,
heat and stuff, and I never put the 2 into together, but you explaining it now makes total sense. I mean, we've been
yeah.
hit with, like, a lot of heat here, thankfully, but you know what? Not gonna say anything about anything because you know how that goes when you start
Yeah.
saying, "Hey, I've not had a problem with bleh," then that thing inevitably breaks. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, we getting a lot of rain here lately. Obviously, it's hurricane season here in Florida.
Right.
So that may impact some of our streams. I don't think these trade shows or CDA or anything like that will really impact them too much. I don't foresee it,
Mhm.
for me at least. So yeah, but yeah, other than that, like me personally, I've just been kind of trucking along, working on. I've been trying to batch about 4 videos because going to Audio Advice Live shooting for Gene, I'm gonna have a lot of videos that I'm editing for him, and I'm not going to be able to put the time into the channel that I want to.
Mhm.
So I kind of want to get 4 videos. I actually have 2 shot. I have the sofa baton video, review, unboxing, setup, and then the multi QX impressions video, and then my next 2 videos are going to be, and that's not the release order,
Mhm.
but the mini DSP tutorial finally, and then a 4th video. I'm thinking of doing something like why audio demos are pointless on YouTube, and
Yeah.
kind of talk about that. Show some examples because I actually have a setup now where I can record stereo like mic with the DJI Mic 2s.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I got a little like rig for my Pocket 3, but it can also hold like a DSLR. And actually, I can actually mount the mics below, like pointing opposite directions. So
Mhm.
like at like the distance they are with most like people's heads. So like each mic is like picking up like what your ears would pick up. Not true binaural audio, mind you, but it will give you a little more spatial awareness. But I thought it would be cool to kind of record some samples and talk about that in a video, and to even talk about why even when you hear this and it sounds maybe good or okay, better, it's
Mhm.
still not going to sound anywhere near like what you're getting in room with them and filling the space and moving air and all of that
Yeah.
stuff. So there's just a lot that goes on.
Yeah. I've wanted to have one of those binaural microphones,
Hmm.
but even then it's like it's it's better than if you're just either recording a mono source or a stereo source,
Yeah.
because it's, made to
Simulate.
replicate the human
Yeah.
head. Yeah. But at the same time, it's like, even if I'm wearing headphones, I'm still not going to get the bass response as you would in room.
Yeah.
If you're just listening to it on your headphones, the drivers are only so big. So you're only going
Yeah.
to get a so bass response. You're not really going to feel it in your chest or anything. So yeah, that's also because I'm still like puzzled at when people make that complaint. I don't get it often, but it still periodically pops up on some of the comments. Like, I I can't believe you went through that whole, you know, review and you didn't do a sound test. It's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's crap. It's it
Yeah.
is nowhere near what you're actually going to hear in person if you have that equipment in your own
Yeah.
living room. So,
And I think Siphonics brings up a good point that we do listen to recordings. That's all that music is. I mean, everything we listen to has been recorded and mixed and mastered and all this stuff. But what I don't want, but the kind of opposite point of that is I don't want the mics that I'm using coloring the sound in any way where it's not
right.
representative of what I'm hearing. And that's, I think, what the main crux of the problem is. Because if someone's going to like watch a speaker review on YouTube and listen on they're watching on their phone, even if they're using headphones, they're probably not going to get uh, maybe 10 to 20, 25% of what those speakers actually sound like. even
Yep.
with really good headphones. And we're talking, if this was recorded binaurally with a really expensive binaural mic, there's still going to be like some room for improvement there with like the coloration of the mic sound recording. Sorry, I'm like grasping for words. No, but also there's just no way to capture like the ultra low frequencies. Like, I go down to like 11 hertz in my room. There's just
Mhm.
no way to capture, even if a mic is capturing something down to 20 hertz, it's still not capturing the energy being produced from that, if that makes
Right.
sense.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's just a lot to it. There's not, it's not cut and dry.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
some people love the audio demos. I think I still stand by like they're pointless on YouTube. Just like someone recording an HDR video off of their TV and saying that it's not anywhere
Right.
going to be close to that. So close to the
Yeah.
real experience. So anyway, I get off my soapbox now. But yeah, so I've been kind of just doing that, and that's what's
Yeah.
hopefully coming very soon. That way I'll have
Yay.
at least 4 weeks worth of videos. We're going to go ahead and dive in here. And I do want to mention real quick, super chats and super stickers are turned on. If you guys want to support the channel, cool. If you feel like doing that, awesome. We appreciate you guys just being here. So that is enough for us. But if you bought us a coffee or something, I wouldn't complain about it. And then also, if you have just a general question, we're just going to keep it general. Let's, topical, whatever. Just put a GQ in the front and ask away. That way we can easily see it and star it. And
Yeah.
yeah. So we're going to just kind of dive in here. And I actually want to highlight another comment by Siphonics here. And where was it? There it is.
It's there.
So this was kind of my first point. I was going to kick it over to Elon, but I'm going to be selfish and talk first. That people need to listen in person. Too much of the the home theater hobby is lost when people rely on talking head videos. Reference in person for sound has to be in person 100%. And I totally agree with that. And what I'll say about that is a lot of these kind of bigger expos, these bigger events like CEDIA, like CES, while they have some really cool shit and really cool setups, they're typically not set up in ideal locations. And that actually does benefit them because you can hear what something sounds like in a not ideal location, right?
Right. Right.
A lot of these bigger brands have rooms, like dedicated rooms that are somewhat soundproof, or they block out a lot of the outside noise because these events can get loud, especially
Mhm.
like CEDIA. CEDIA is just kind of like just sound from every angle. You walk in, it's like there's demos over here, demos over there, demos over. It's just so much audio. Like it's hard to parse everything that's going on at one time.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you can get a demo of something in a room where they close the doors and maybe they've built a little room, it is going to be that much more representative, maybe what you can get at home.
Right.
But I will say that the more intimate shows, more intimate events, like some of the ones that are kind of set up in a hotel,
Yeah.
Audio Advice Live is a good example. Um, what was the other Florida Audio Expo? If you're on the East Coast, is
Mhm.
another example. M Wave is a good example. I mean, that I know it does grow every year and it gets bigger, but I think they're still using the Kansas Convention Center, which I don't know if they've kind of expanded the amount of rooms they have. But what I liked about it was each room had maybe there were some shared rooms, but like for the most part, each brand had their own room that you could go in and listen, and they close the doors, and you kind of get a more critical experience listening there.
Mhm.
Uh, but I agree with Siphonics 100% that you need to listen to this stuff in person. I think that's why a lot of companies do have 45-day risk-free in-home trial type thing. Yeah, you pay for the speaker, but if you hate it, if you're like, oh, this doesn't sound good, you can return it with like no questions asked. Ask, asked. ASSED. But yeah, what are your thoughts on that, Elon? Like, are you a fan of people listening in person? obviously, but like, what would you say? Like, would that be like one of the main things is that people should attend these events?
Yeah, I mean, say what you want about Andrew Robinson, but he always ends his video by saying your system should sound as the best it can sound to you yourself, like you personally. Because in the end, even though we're reviewing stuff online and giving our honest opinion about it, in the end, audio is still incredibly subjective. So everyone is going to hear, because if you think about it scientifically, and this kind of goes back to what you were saying about, filming HDR stuff and putting that on YouTube and having it be a 100% perfect representation. No, that's not the
Yeah.
case because, yes, we see things, yes, we hear things, but in the end, it's your brain's interpretation of those sound waves coming into your eardrum. It's those light waves, hitting your eyeball and being interpreted by your brain. So everybody's going to interpret it just slightly different.
Hmm.
So, and especially with audio, because you'll have somebody sit down in some listening room at an expo and they think it sounds like the best thing they've ever heard. Next person comes in, maybe they think it's too tinny. Maybe they think the highs are just a little bit too sibilant. Maybe they don't like the bass as much. Like those kinds of things, you really do need to figure out um, for yourself. A lot of people don't like Klipsch because they're just a little bit too sensitive and too like their high frequencies are a little bit too much for their ears.
Yeah.
Um, so like, you've got to figure these things out if you really want to get something that you're going to enjoy. Yeah, because we can tell you all day it sounded pretty good, or it sounded pretty bad, or it sounded this or that. But in the end, what I say could be completely different from what your brain is actually interpreting and what you consider to be sounding good or not. So yeah, these kinds of expos, or even just going to your local Best Buy or something, if there's like a Magnolia room or something, and they've
Yeah.
got several different speakers to test out or whatever, or if you have some sort of high end audio, like boutique audio store that's near you or you can drive to or whatever. Yeah, auditioning speakers is really important. Um, I mean, when Aperion Audio first approached me to review some of their speakers, I had never heard of them before.
Hmm.
And since I live in Northern California and their headquarters are in Oregon, I knew that would be pretty simple, shipping process. And but then it turns out that I really like the sound of their speakers, especially their
Yeah.
Veris line. And then they sent me the Theatris line. And that just totally opened up a new world of just like speakers specifically designed for theater usage.
Yeah.
And I just really loved the just the clarity and the power behind it and the the attack of the high frequencies, especially with dialogue and stuff. It was coming through just like I would hear like in a movie theater. And it was the first time I'd ever heard it just like that. And so I was fortunate enough that I really enjoyed the specific sound that Aperion speakers have, but I'm sure not everyone is going to be that lucky. So yeah, just getting out there and demoing, or at least hearing a demo of speakers, is pretty important especially if you know you're going to be spending a lot of money, because it's quite an investment. So
Yeah. Real quick to sidetrack here, Willie, thank you for joining us. He says, beautiful t-shirt, Elon. I love Limbo. What an incredible game.
yes, Limbo.
I agree. I love that game so much.
Yeah.
Although the spider section still scares me. I hate it. I mean, I
It
love it, but I
is
hate it. It's
very creepy. Yeah.
I think I just don't like getting chased by stuff. So, but yeah, I think, you know, going back to Appearing Audio, I had never heard of them either, and they reached out to me, and you know, this kind of goes into something that I read online recently, and unfortunately, I don't think Appearing Audio does many events.
I think
Because
they're starting
oh,
to get more of a presence. I know
okay,
they were just at the show in Southern California.
okay. So, well, that's
So
good. That's good.
they're
Because they
branching
actually
out.
reached back out to me and was like, "Hey, it's been a while. Do you want to like review anything? Can we send you some stuff?" And I'm like, I mean, I still got like a bunch of they've never asked for anything back, which is crazy to me. But
Yeah.
I digress. Anyway,
Well, actually, speaking of Aperion Audio, they did ask if I wanted to review their flagship, now flagship Monster T107 Theatris speaker.
they asked me that too.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if I could fit
It's
it.
like
In,
it's like 250 pounds, just one of them.
yeah,
250 pounds,
and it comes with their own metal
4
stand, right? Like,
yeah,
yeah,
4 8-inch woofers for the low end, and I'm like, "Ah, that's just too much for my little theater, man."
yeah, yeah. I mean,
But,
imagine,
I mean, I did
yeah,
give him the caveat, like, "Well, I might wanna review those in a 2.1 setting
yeah.
because you can tri-amp them."
Yeah. Or you might
And
even be able to get away, depending on the response, like a 2.0 setting with like sans subwoofer. Like you don't need, it's not like I
right.
said sand subwoofer. No,
Sand.
no subwoofer, like just to see because with that many drivers, yeah, I don't know. That would be
And
kind of
having them
interesting.
all separately amped? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah. Are
listening to
they
music like that?
are they
Boy.
voice matched or timbre matched with the any other line, or is it just because
I
my thing is
believe it is timbre
oh,
matched with all the other Theatrus stuff.
okay. Gotcha. Gotcha.
Or
That makes sense. Yeah, but when they reached out, I had never heard of them, and I'm like, well, these guys are like they're super cool. I really like them. The two guys that we dealt with, Dallas and uh,
Colin.
Colin. Thank you. And yeah, I was just like, yeah, these guys are cool. They wanted to send me a guitar, but I'm like, I really can't make a video on a guitar for my home theater channel. But thanks for asking.
Mhm.
But I really liked the I mean I had the layers. That was like the first
Mhm.
thing they sent me, which is like just Bluetooth speakers, but they sound damn good for their price and their size. The Bravas, like their you have
12
to
12D?
yeah, what was a 10D first? I have both of
Ah,
them.
yeah, yeah.
And they both perform really well. Actually, I have the 12D down here under my computer desk. I have like
Oh.
the mini DSP in here with a just a little 2-channel system for like mixing YouTube videos. But yeah, I think that or I thought that I was like, that sounds really good. And they were super cool to work with. And I'm like, hey, I noticed you guys had some in ceilings and they're relatively affordable for in ceiling speakers.
Mhm,
But I got their I think they're clear 6Cs, or the angled ones,
mhm.
really damn good. I mean, I don't even have like backer boxes on them. So like
Yeah.
their low frequencies are not like is rapidly diminished when you don't have the back boxes or whatever you call them installed,
Mhm.
but they still sound fantastic. I actually have four in the ceilings or in the ceiling, and the thing is they measure so well for the price that you pay. I paid more for like some Polk audio speakers that measured or that sound not just measured, but they sounded so poorly.
Mhm.
Uh, but what I was going to say to that is, there are kind of scientific channels like Aaron's Audio Corner and things that use Clipple, like a Clipple measurement system, which is
Yeah, right.
super accurate. But just because I'm only mentioning this because I used to have this mentality of like measurements are the end all be all. If
Mhm.
it doesn't measure well, it's not going to sound good. It's going to sound like shit. It's whatever. And I've kind of rethought that. Like obviously if a speaker just measures so bad, it's going to sound it's gonna sound like crap.
Right.
I think I mentioned it in my revamp video. I had some old Pioneer speakers that measured so bad, like they tapered off so hard on the highs, like
Mm.
after like six kilohertz, that I'm like,
Oh man.
yeah, it was just like it was like fine up until then. It was just like a steep drop. Like there was no high
Whoa.
frequency detail. That's a bad speaker, right?
Yeah.
That's I don't think anybody's gonna argue with you. There's no correcting that. But I know some of the appearing audio speakers haven't measured the best, but the ones that I've heard sound really good. So obviously, the Clipple stuff is really like accurate, and will tell you everything you need to know. But measurements just kind of show you. I'm going to steal what Symphonics just said. Measurements show you what's going on, but it can't tell you what it's actually going to sound like to your ears.
Yep.
It'll tell you if you have problems in certain frequencies,
Mhm.
right? Like, for instance, the Pioneers, again, that steep drop off, but it won't tell you, what's the actual sound characteristics of a speaker,
Yeah.
because you're just seeing a graph. You don't, for all intents and purposes, it's going to sound, like a flat speaker. It's like, no, because each woofer is going to sound different from each different manufacturer, and things aren't going to be identical. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
so
just look at the specs on any speaker.
mhm,
The difference in the materials they use to make their tweeters different. Like they all tend to have like their own proprietary version of this and that and this and that. Oh, soft dome. Oh no, we use magnesium. Oh no, we
yeah,
use some sort of crazy alloy. And even what the woofer is made out of,
mhm,
it can be made out of Kevlar or paper or some sort of other rigid material.
yeah,
So like every
for real,
manufacturer out there is trying to come up with some cool way of not just being just your ordinary speaker and using the same materials that everybody else is using, but so like, oh yeah, we've got this unique thing and it sounds so much better. It's like, sure, that's just marketing. you know any marketing department in any company is going to say that their product is superior because they want to sell their product.
yeah,
But yeah, in the end, it's just how it sounds and or how it sounds to you. Um, how many? You've been to quite a few expos or trade shows, as far as I'm aware.
mhm.
What are all the ones that you have been to?
Uh, I will answer that in just a moment, but I want to address Chad's question. Welcome, Chad, for joining. The overall idea of this topic is trade shows, events like CEDIA, CES, if it's worth going to for most general consumers looking to get a home theater or just that are curious. But that kind of shoehorned into a side topic of measurements aren't everything and will not entirely dictate how something will sound. So we kind of got off on like a little
Yeah,
tangent there, but I think it speaks to the importance of hearing it. Kind of basically when you joined, like when you popped in, Chad, we were talking about uh basically why it's important to hear something in person versus just taking like a reviewer's uh word for it.
yeah.
So
Or taking the measurements word for it.
right.
Right.
So yeah, those two, it's like you could watch me, you could watch Elon, you can watch anybody, out there, but then ultimately it's going to come down to what it sounds like to your ears. So
Mhm.
and then yeah, M-Wave is, I'm going to talk a little bit about M-Wave. We had just mentioned that for some of the bigger trade shows and bigger events like CEDIA and CES, it's hard to get kind of like an intimate demo of speakers or kind of connect with people on a more or brands, like talk to people from brands that have representation there on a more kind of like personal level. Whereas like M-Wave to me was different in that it was much more low key than a lot of these other shows. Like, 'cause a lot of these other shows are just about like wowing you with demo after demo after demo. And
Mhm.
um, you're gonna like you're gonna have a limited amount of time in a lot of scenarios. Like Audio Vice Live, Florida Audio Expo was the same thing. But like with M Wave and Audio Advice to some degree, you have a little bit more intimacy there, a little more personal connection. You could basically listen in a more controlled environment, because
Right.
anything that's out in the open, like Cedia, typically outside of the rooms that these companies have built, everything's
Yeah.
out in the open. It's
Yeah.
like hard to go over and listen to this $35,000 Wisdom audio system and go, oh, like, yeah, that sounds great. Well, it's like literally out in the open, competing with all the other sound around.
Right.
It's not really going to be a good representation of
Yeah.
that. So yeah, M Wave is one that if you can swing it, I think it's probably the show I would go to if you want something more personal. And that's only, I'm not like affiliated with. I mean, I know Michael Youthman, I know like Ryan, who kind of put this whole thing together,
Mhm.
but it's been my experience going to the other events that M Wave would be the one that you would want a more personal experience from. Whereas like these other guys are just about like going to check out some cool shit.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, but to go back to your question, Elon, like the ones that I've been to. So I started out with Cedia in 2023, 2022. That was
Mhm.
my first kind of big. I keep hitting this. Stop, hand. I'm telling my hand to stop. It's got a mind of its own.
Mhm.
Um, but so CD was the first one that I went to, and it was overwhelming, partly due to uh Michael's scheduling, which I still talk to him about. I'm like, dude, I can't do that again. We were shooting like 10 videos in a day or 8 videos in a day. I think the first one we didn't even
Oh
have time
man.
to stop to eat. And he's like, I got protein bars. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go get a coffee. I'll be back. But yeah, it was still fun, but it was definitely like overwhelming. I was basically kind of there as his camera operator. So I
Mhm.
was just able to take it all in more than if I just went by myself and was completely like, I was like, what is happening? Like, there's so much. I knew a few of the brands, SVS was there, so I knew those guys pretty well. Um, and so I was able to, kind of hang out with them and talk to them. But honestly, it got so busy that, that, well, I think somebody's printing something. Um, but like like basically Cedia just is crazy. It's kind of balls to the wall the whole time you're there. Obviously,
Yeah.
if you go, I think if I remember, it typically like the Friday, opening Friday, if you can get there right when it opens, it's pretty okay. In terms of like how busy it is. And then Saturday is like the busiest day, obviously. And Sunday can be kind of lax, you know.
Yeah.
Um, so I was just like, oh, okay. And then the following year I went to M Wave. That was 2023. So that was my first time going to M Wave. Wasn't able to go this past year. But like I said, it was like more intimate. Like that's what really surprised me about it. I mean, I didn't really have any
Yeah.
expectations. And I don't think at the time Michael had any expectations because it was the second year. And they had over like double the amount of people that showed up the first year show up the second year. So like there was just way more, there's way more going on.
Mhm.
And I was like, oh, okay. But yeah, it was great. I mean, I basically went there to work, but he also wanted me to enjoy the show and kind of take all that stuff in. And again, I was able to go talk to people that I wouldn't have been able to really get a personal or make a personal connection with.
Yeah. True.
Um, at Cedia. So like a good example is Todd from Row One Seating. Really nice guy. Met him at M Wave. We ended up shooting a video at Audio Advice Live, pretty lengthy video, and I thought the video turned out well, but nobody nobody watched it. It's always those, But we had a great time talking. He's a super great guy. Um, he owns the company, which is funny because I had no idea until the end of M-Wave that he was the owner of Row One. And I think that is one of the cool things about some of these is like you get talking to these people, you have no idea who they are
Yeah.
sometimes. And then you're like, whoa, wait a minute. Like, I was talking to Chris Seymour, and I'm like just having a chat with him, not knowing who it was. This was an audio advice. And I was like, I don't know, just we were just having a conversation about something like not even home theater related. I don't even remember what it was. He's like super nice guy, and it was only after the fact I was talking to Michael. He's like, yeah, that's Chris Seymour from Seymour Screens. Like he owns Seymour Screens, and I'm like, so you make these connections with these companies and these people, and you just have like conversations with them. And I think that yeah, the audio and stuff is cool, but like having that connection when you're like, I really like this person, I want to support them, right? Like I want to
Yeah.
it's almost like when you find like a local mom and pop place and you really like them and they're really nice and really good people, you want to support that company. You want to support that local coffee house or whatever. It's kind of a similar thing. Like some of these companies are not massive, but some of them are just really passionate about what they do, and I think that shows.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Audio Advice Live was the next one that I went to, and that was like my first kind of like trade show in a hotel, like an event in a hotel where like you have floors of different rooms and stuff. That was I liked it, but it was also trying to figure out where all the stuff was so super like, okay, wait,
Yeah, true.
SVS is on this floor. Like I memorized where SVS was because last year I did their live stream on air. Like I was
Yeah.
like on site. I mean, I was there. I was off to the side, and then Nick gave me the cue and it's like, come on in. So that was just like interesting. But yeah, again, it was a lot of like being able to be in like this small hotel room where they could close the doors. They couldn't, obviously, they're still competing with like bass from and sound from other rooms because,
Sure.
but it was just a much more personal thing there too. But also, everybody that I met was just a far more relaxed atmosphere. Whereas like CD and CES are like these big ass shows,
Yeah.
these big ass events, that a lot of corporate stuff is going on behind there. It's like
Mhm.
I was just able to talk to people from different companies. Like I did a video on Audio Vice Live from last year where it was basically somebody, a guy named Adam that worked for Kef set up a room with 3 projectors, and it was a total like gaming kind of thing. We were
Oh,
playing like
yeah, that one, yeah.
yeah, and what was funny is we shot the video, and about I don't know 5-10 minutes into the video, I was like, so what do you actually do? Because we haven't actually talked about the company you worked for yet. We were just talking about gaming, and that's
Right.
kind of like what it's really like. It's like, oh yeah, that's kind of important. I guess I should mention Kef because like that's who that's who employs me. Not me personally, but him.
Right.
And so it was just kind of like that's kind of a general conversation. If, yeah, you're gonna have occasional people that just won't engage with you. I think when I went to the LG room and I saw they had, I can't remember what they had. It was one of their new gaming monitors,
Mhm.
and I could shoot videos, I could talk about it, but the LG rep wouldn't be on camera. He's not allowed to talk on camera about any of this stuff,
Oh,
which I'm
I
just
see.
like, that's kind of odd. So,
Yeah.
uh, and I don't know if that was a personal thing for him or that's just like what LG does. But yeah, some of the brands can kind of be pretty strict in that regards, but honestly, a lot of them are just really like you start talking to them and you know, yeah, some just want to sell you their product, but others are just really like, here's what our brand's about and everything. So,
Yeah.
um, and the other one I've gone to is Florida Audio Expo, which is just it is okay. Like
Yeah.
if you're in Florida and you're interested in more like 2-channel stuff, it's
Oh, okay.
it's it's cool. But for like home theater purposes, um, yeah, it's kind of like hit or miss. Like SVS was there last year. or this past year, and that was cool. They had a couple of like multi-channel systems at this last year, but it's predominantly like high-end two-channel setups,
Mhm.
lots of boutique brands, lots of turntables and high-end DACs and $35,000 cables and all this stuff. So
Right.
crazy, right? Crazy. Kind of not my wheelhouse. But
Mhm.
if people are into that, it's a cool show. If you're not into that and you think you may be into that and you live in like the kind of Tampa, Florida area, it's cool to check it out. Um, but
Is
overall,
that one set up like Cedia where it's just open air and just a bunch of
no,
booths?
that's also in a hotel.
Okay.
So, yeah, the one thing I will say is if you ever go, any of you guys watching ever go to events that are in hotels, be okay taking the stairs because it's probably going to be quicker than the elevator unless you're
Oh,
carrying
yeah,
around a lot
dude.
of equipment. So get into shape before you go. Yeah, I think at Florida Audio Expo we waited like 15 minutes for the elevator because I had like a
Oh,
bunch of stuff
dude.
and I'm like I'm not carrying this downstairs. Like I had like
Mhm.
camera gear and audio gear. I'm like I don't want to trip and damage all this stuff. So I'd rather just
Yeah.
wait. But yeah. So I enough about me. I know you've been to CES, right?
Yeah, honestly, that's the only one I've been to so far. So, yeah, going to Cedia in September will finally be a chance to branch out and go to different stuff. But yeah, I mean, it just seems like from what you're saying that Cedia is like the CES of kind of more home theater slash audio. And I mean, there are other stuff that's being presented and showcased at Cedia, but it is definitely more audio focused than CES, which is more just general technology focused. But yeah, it's just CES is just completely bonkers because it's just a gigantic convention center with booths everywhere and open air and these little pathways that you can walk down, but otherwise every square inch is packed with people trying to wow you with their latest thing.
Hey,
And yeah. So yeah, it was a little bit overkill just because it wasn't primarily about audio. So I definitely got to see a lot of stuff, but it was a lot of stuff that I didn't care about. So it is what it is. It was cool at the time. Plus, I got to um, the stuff that I was able to do because I was helping out, kind of like you were helping out Michael. I was helping out Techno Dad in at CES 2023. So I was helping him set up some shots and interviews and B-roll and stuff like that. So because of that, I also got invited to a lot of stuff that I would have otherwise not have seen or been able to go to, etc. Because he had the hookup.
yeah.
So being able to meet all the people behind Xperi who own DTS and IMAX,
Hmm.
that was a really cool demo because they demoed some stuff with IMAX Enhanced um, and DTSX in their demo room, which was a room that was closed off. So it sounded really good. But we also had this really cool and engaging question and answer session after the demo. And just because we're like, Techno Dad and I were kind of at the front lines because we're dealing directly with consumers and we get comments all the time and we get
Yeah.
questions of and concerns from people who are thinking about purchasing this or that. And so it was really cool to like just see the shift in Sven was his name, Sven something. Mevison, I think, Sven Mevison. And you could see that he was really glad that Techno Dad and I were asking these very specific questions that he wasn't being asked at all because no other like exhibitor or no other person that had strolled through and seen their demo was really on the front lines like Technodad and I are. So they were just kind of asking just bullshit general questions, but then Technodad and I were asking like, kind of prodding and poking and being like, well, what about this and this and this? Have you considered that and that? So yeah, it was really fun to have him answer those questions and be visibly excited that somebody was actually asking the hard questions. So that was really fun. And then also being able to hear the Nakamichi Dragon soundbar for the
Yeah.
first time. I wouldn't have been able to do that, which was also, even though it was CES, they did have their own separate hotel room so they can actually have a more closed off, um, listening session, which was really cool. And, that gave me the chance to get to know the people of Nakamichi, and they were able to send me out the Nakamichi for the review that I did. Gosh, that's been, I think it was over a year ago. So
Wow.
long ago.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, those kinds of things were really cool. Um, I don't, I'm, I mean, I guess I would probably go to CES again at some point, but I really don't think I will anytime soon. Maybe in a few years when some really cool stuff has come out that I just
Yeah.
was anticipating or something. But otherwise, I do want to go to like what you're talking about. I would like to hit up M Wave, the more intimate shows. I would like to hit up the show because that's also kind of that same format where it's in different hotel rooms as opposed to
Yeah.
just on an open convention center floor.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, and have you ever been to Axpona?
I have not. No, that's another one. That's another big kind of name.
Yeah, I can't
Also, a couple
remember.
of people have mentioned this in comments, and I'm just so out of the loop right now. But apparently, Michael has stepped away from M Wave. Um,
Oh,
I had no idea. Yeah, I don't. I'm like, I noticed he posted a video because I haven't honestly been on YouTube in probably about a week and a half, 2 weeks. Um, but yeah, I guess he stepped away from M Wave. He posted a video
hmm.
talking about changes are coming. Yeah, addressing the elephant in the room and new beginnings.
Oh,
So
that one. Okay,
that one, yeah, I'll need to watch
I
that
saw the
one.
thumbnail, but I didn't end up watching it yet.
Yeah. What was the other one? Oh yeah. I really hope M Wave is still the same next year. Since Michael left, it might change dramatically or even fall apart. Yeah, I know from personal experience in going to M Wave the previous year, not to hijack your because I think you were going to talk about Expona. Um, there was this was kind of Michael and Ryan's first foray into putting something like this together, and it's kind of getting a little of the behind the scenes of like what needs to go into this. Guys, it's like I was not envious whatsoever. Like I knew like he was passionate about it, but like seeing the amount of shit he was dealing with from not I don't want to say shit. It wasn't bad stuff, but it was just like the amount of work involved is so vast. The first 2 years they like him and Ryan did everything themselves, which is insane to me. Like putting that all together. Um, yeah, it's definitely a learning experience, right? Uh, it the second year he hired me to shoot some videos, and we had about it was Sunday, and I was flying out in like 6 hours, and we had like 11 brand videos to shoot,
That's a
and
lot.
it may have 11 may be maybe an exaggeration. Maybe it was closer to like 8 or 9, but still, it was a lot in a 6 hour period because a lot of moving parts have to come into play for each of these videos.
Yeah.
Um, and so the problem was he was all over the place. He was checking people in. He was doing this. People wanted to stop and talk to him because it's they've watched him for years and they want to say thanks and like, hey, how you doing? Can I get a
Yeah.
picture? Whatever, which is great. But like, I ended up at some point kind of turning into his handler and being like, Michael, we got to go, man. Like, I leave in 6 hours, and we got to shoot these videos. These brands need these videos. You've promised them that, and I also want to get paid. This is kind of why I'm here. So we need to do this. Otherwise, I'm out. Like, I got to leave, and you're gonna be left to do this on your own, and I don't want you to have to deal with that on top of everything else. So we were literally like running gunning every single video. And if you watch some of those videos, they're incredibly shaking. It's kind of shaky because I just had a
Yeah.
handheld rig. I'm like, we don't have time to set up a gimbal or anything like that. We just have to go. We have to go do this.
Mm.
And yeah, it was kind of chaotic. And I think that kind of in Wave 2023 kind of led him to hire or to bring someone else in to kind of put things together and make everything more organized, because it's just a lot for two people to do. I think he said Ryan had handled a lot of the kind of brand relationships and things like that. I
Right.
don't know the exact, stuff going on, but they were both incredibly like, stressed the whole time because there's just a lot of stuff, going on behind the scenes. And so it's really hard to put a show like that together. And I was happy to be a part of it. But like it was something that I was like, I don't know if I could do this again next year,
Mhm.
because it was just a lot on my plate, as like, because he didn't really, Michael didn't really know what he wanted in terms of like video. He's like, just shoot stuff, and I'm like,
Okay.
yeah. Well, his thing was he didn't have any B-roll or pictures from the previous year. Like, he didn't have any
Mm.
video at all, and he wanted kind of like a little sizzle reel to put together for 2024
Mhm.
from previous year. And I was like, okay, yeah, I can shoot a bunch of that stuff, whatever you need. And it was a very like kind of open thing for me. I didn't, other than the brand videos that we needed to shoot, I kind of had free reign to shoot whatever I wanted. And it was just a lot of like, let me go into this room and kind of capture the ambience of the room, right? Like, what setups in here and all that stuff, just to kind of, get a feel for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still a lot. I felt like I was like, you go to like these events and you see people working behind the scenes and you're like, kind of like, man, they can go like everywhere. That's so cool. I kind of felt like that,
Yeah.
you know? And then they were also running like some type of, I think it was called Collecticon, which was like Pokemon and kind of all this stuff at
Oh.
the same time in the same convention center at a different part.
Oh,
So
man.
like people were coming up to the M Wave registration desk to get like their Collecticon passes, but like we that wasn't what we were there for, and we had to tell all these people. I did see Charles Martinet, the voice of Mario, so that was cool.
Ooh.
Yeah, because he was there, but I know this is kind of a joke, but you may be onto something, Willie. Says now that Ryan's running M Wave, it may become dominated by rooms full of massive subs. Ryan likes big things. I'll just say that. I'll say he likes big speakers. I got to be careful how I word that.
And he cannot lie.
And I like big subs, and I cannot lie. See, I just turned it into something a little more PG,
Yay.
right? So yeah, I think though, I haven't watched Michael's video about it, but it does sound like M Wave is still continuing on. I do know that Ryan had a kind of major role in M Wave. It wasn't just Michael. It was kind of Michael and Ryan's idea
Yeah.
together. And so, yeah, I think kind of see how that progresses. I'm curious.
I think the first thing Ryan's gonna do is he's gonna insist that people call it Mwave.
Wave,
Yeah.
Wave. Yeah,
Yeah.
change the
Not
name,
not M-Wave, just Mwave.
change the brand identity a little bit.
Right.
Update the branding, just call it Wave. I think it'll catch. I think it'll catch on.
Yeah.
Um,
Hey, you Mwaving this year?
yeah, man. I'm waved last year and it was great. We're just ruining
Um,
any type of hype for that now just by saying that.
Siphonics brought up a good point, that he was talking about the Florida Expo is good to go to. The show is good to go to because again, it's more intimate. They've got actual rooms instead of just open air booths where it's everybody's noise competing against
Yeah.
everybody else. Capital, I'm not sure what that one is. But yeah, M Wave and Expona. That's why I wanted to bring up Expona
Yeah,
because I've never been to it, but that's the one in like near Chicago or something.
I think so. Yeah, I'll have to
But
check.
yeah, the American Expo North America. But I believe that's the same deal where it's a lot of hotel rooms as opposed to big open convention center. I think it might have a little bit of a convention center vibe to it, but there's also, separate rooms you could go to if you really wanted
Yeah,
to. So,
yeah, that's in Chicago, which is where my wife is from.
Chicago.
Chicago. Uh, so obviously, like you and I being on YouTube, having home theater centric channels, we can pretty easily get press passes to all of these events if we want to. So right, like we don't have to pay to get in. That's something that does need to be mentioned. Is like a lot of these are not free for like
True.
average people. They vary in price. I think CDA can get expensive. CES can get super expensive.
Mhm.
Um, it's something that you have to decide you're going to go to. Like I
Yeah.
think M Wave is relatively affordable or has been. I don't know if they're going to change that or anything, but and I do like I think was it Will Anderson kind of hopped in. I was saying that earlier. I think
Mhm.
Will before you popped in here. But yeah, if you want a more personal experience, in the past, M Wave has been what I would recommend. It's far more easy to get a personal experience there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, to go back to what I was saying, I was actually want to kind of get your opinion on something because I know like some channels and some not calling anybody out because like people got to eat, make money. Uh, they do a lot of sponsored content for these big trade shows, big events. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like basically, obviously, if people don't know how it works, like we make videos, we typically get ad revenue from those videos, but it will typically not cover like if we make 5 videos, I'd be lucky if it covered like the price of a flight to go to Cedia.
Yeah.
And that's not even a hotel. Like
Right.
these trips can get expensive, so we have to kind of figure out a way to go without really, putting us in the red in terms of like, is this how much is this going to cost us, right? So
Mhm.
one way to do that is to work with brands and maybe do a couple sponsored videos, or you can just do all sponsored videos and just make a lot of money.
Mhm.
Um, I think if you do that, to me, that's kind of weird. I don't know. I want to. That's why I want to go to Cedia, on my own accord and make whatever I want to make. Right. I don't have to be tied
Yeah.
to say like I could just talk to anybody I want to. I could say whatever I want to. It's like, yep, these are unaffordable to everybody. You know.
Right.
But what are your thoughts on that? Like shooting brand videos. Are you open to that? Is there a limit that you go? You know what? I'm only going to do so many. Like, how do you navigate that?
Yeah. I honestly have yet to do that because I know Michael is a big proponent in doing that or
Yeah.
was. Because I mean, yeah, it's a great opportunity for content creators like us to actually make money besides just hoping and relying on the YouTube algorithm and AdSense to pay some odd views
Yeah.
that our video might get. Because the difference is if we're doing, I mean, because when you say sponsored video, at least to everyone listening, if you're not aware, it's basically making an agreement with a company ahead of time to be like, I'm going to come to your booth. I'm going to shoot some B roll of your stuff. And one of your representatives is probably going to be on a microphone talking about that equipment because they realize that that is going to be a very good, very good exposure because we're going to be on YouTube and we have an audience and
Yeah.
people are going to be searching for those things and probably come across that video, etc. Um, so yeah, that's a time that creators like us can actually get money, guaranteed money, up front, or perhaps on the back end or whatever. um, instead of relying on the algorithm.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not opposed to it, but yeah, I do definitely want, since I've never done it before, I'm not exactly sure what kind of time commitment that is going to be as far as,
Right.
editing the thing and uploading the thing and yada yada yada. So I do want to limit. I actually do think I have one in line already, that Techno Dad kind of hooked me up with, and probably besides that, maybe two more. Because the reason I want to go to Cedia, because if you out there who are listening to this either right now or listening to the podcast, if you're thinking about going to an expo and you are maybe close to the Denver area, because that's where Cedia is held in September. The reason I would go as a consumer, yes, it is the convention style
Yeah.
where it's open air and just a bunch of booths, and you're not exactly going to get the best representation of how those speakers or how a system is going to sound. So that shouldn't be your goal for Cedia. But if you do want to go to some sort of expo like that, Cedia would be a great opportunity to figure out just brands that are out there,
Yeah.
because you're definitely going to run into some brands that you've never heard of before. And, maybe they demo some stuff for you, and maybe that alone is impressive. Sure, it's not going to sound the same in your living room, but you still might have that opportunity to be like, well, they actually kind of sounded pretty cool. Maybe I should, maybe they have some sort of 30-day or 60-day, return policy or something. If I don't like it, who knows? But it is a chance to at least get exposure to some stuff out there that you never would have been able to see otherwise.
Yeah.
Um, because there's only so many content creators out there like us, and a lot of times we don't even have relationships with the majority of them. So we're not getting equipment or product from still quite a few companies out there
Yeah.
that may or may not have some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
So that's at least one reason that I would go to CEDIA. But otherwise, I am going to CEDIA because I've never been there yet. So, and I know it's just something that content creators should do at least once, because I also want to network.
Yeah.
Because it's, yeah, like you have had experience doing what Brad in the past is, talking to these people, or either the owner of the company or some representative from the company that you can speak to face that you wouldn't have the chance to otherwise, because either they're really hard to contact online because they just don't put their information online, because
Yeah.
they probably don't want an influx of emails, which I totally understand. But yeah, just to shake hands and talk face to face with these people and hopefully let them know that I exist and that I
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
YouTube channel, so that I can hopefully review their product in the future to let consumers know, like yourselves, if their products are good or not, or if I think they're good or not, if they sound
Yeah.
slightly different or whatever.
Yeah.
So I am hoping to walk away from CEDIA with many more contacts so that I can help the consumer in the end. That's my
Yeah.
goal.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of opportunity there, right?
Yeah.
Like there's many ways to look at it. You can go and like I love it because it's a way for me to show what the show is like through like my viewpoint, because everybody's viewpoint is different, but also people might not be able to go. And so if I could give them just kind of like, I think when I went to the first CEDIA, I just did kind of like a vlog, just kind of walked around and talked to some people.
Mhm.
And it was more of like off the cuff. It wasn't like, none of it was sponsored. I currently don't have anything set up for CEDIA. If I could get one or two sponsors like you that would help cover the flight, I could probably stay with a friend in the Aurora area.
Mhm.
That would be great. I'd like to make a little money to at least cover food, but that
Sure.
way that way I could present stuff to you guys and like not really, because like I love making videos, but it's like so this stuff still costs money, and it's like,
Mhm.
that's just unfortunately a part of the business. But I don't want it. There's to me there's like a fine line between like like your channel kind of turning into a almost like just a platform for brands to promote their product on, which kind of
Yeah.
can easily happen if you just do review after review, or like you know what I mean, like. And
Mhm.
again, not saying anything bad about the people that do that, because if you can make a living at it and you're cool with
Sure.
that, good. Like, but for me, I want something more, right? Like I don't want I want to be more
Yeah.
than just like a show, like a platform for brands to use just to promote their product.
Yep.
But no, like showing people how something like this is, like how this big event is overwhelming in every sense. How walking around, I think in my last CEDIA video that I did, the final day, that was like my free day. We didn't really have any shoots that I was doing or what we were doing other than SVS. And so it was just like I could walk around. But
Mhm.
when you're limited on time like that, it's completely overwhelming.
Yeah.
Completely overwhelming. So you end up, I was just like, I don't know what to show. Like, let me just go talk to the people that I know, and then
Yeah.
I'll just go, I'll maybe shoot some stuff there with them, or I just might have a conversation with someone and not shoot it. Cause like, again, it's about networking, because it just
Mhm.
helps open up stuff like you for potential opportunities in the future from other companies that you may otherwise not be able to contact. And now they have
Sure.
a face to your channel and a personal experience with you. And um, I always make this kind of like statement because it surprised me. We were shooting the Kaleidoscape video. I don't think
Mhm.
I've ever publicly talked about this, but we were shooting the Kaleidoscape video, and the girl, I don't remember her name, it escapes me. I still have her business card, but I was talking about like how I was, went to film school and all this stuff. And, I love film, and, I love filmmaking and the kind of that process. And, I was looking at the Kaleidoscape website, and you had like a quote from Martin Scorsese on there of like why he likes the Kaleidoscape. And I was like, that
Mm.
was cool. Cause like, he's a director that I really like, that I respect. I've watched all of his stuff. And,
Mhm.
um, and I was talking, I was like, I know I researched like the process that you guys use with like the mezzanine files and all that stuff. And she's like, you have, and I'm sitting there talking, and she's like, you would be having the like located in California and interested in a job, would you? And I was like, are you, she was basically offering me a job,
What the?
right? Yeah. On their like, I don't remember what the team, but it was the team that like worked with the mezzanine files and everything. Like they were the ones that like made sure things were good on
Oh,
like the
wow.
final. And I was like, yeah, I'm in Florida and we just bought a house. So like it's, so you guys offer any remote work? And unfortunately, no. But that was just kind of like, that's an opportunity I never would have even gotten had I not been there. Right.
Right.
Like I never would have gotten this exact person to talk to. And like, I don't know if like the job would have worked out if I would, obviously it wasn't like, hey, I got to go through all these interviews and I don't make it through the interview process for whatever reason, you know?
Right.
But still, that person was aware of me at that time.
Mhm.
So yeah, and that's again, you can kind of Siphonics mentions in person vibe check. You
Yep.
can get a real like vibe of a person. Like I've always been very kind of like I can pick up on people, and like, if someone's like kind of bullshitting me, or if they're like,
Right.
really genuine and friendly and stuff, or if they're just kind of putting on a little act. It's great to have that in-person interaction, because what I actually liked about CD is you get to see a lot of these people. Like we worked with Kaleidoscape, I think the first night, and by Sunday they were just so worn down, and it was almost like I was one of them because I was worn down too. And so I would see them and I was like, can this day be over? And they're like, yes. And it was like everybody, like these shows take a lot to put together. And by the end,
Yeah.
I probably just ruined all my chances with Kaleidoscape ever just by saying that now. No, they're not robots, people. They're people.
Yeah,
They get
people.
tired. There's only so much coffee that you can drink.
I mean, because if you think about it, especially if you're if you're a rep that is, presenting all this information, it's like an actor. You're
Yeah.
repeating the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah. I mean, I know it's like, they're gonna lose their voice at some point because they're talking so much and there's so many people coming
Mhm.
through, and it's exhausting doing that kind of stuff. But
Yeah.
for the kind of stuff that we do, and I think that's also something that I liked, because last year I went to Audio Advice Live on my own. I like they paid for, like, they gave me a room, Audio Advice did, but I paid
Mhm.
for my flight. I wasn't there, like, I didn't have any brand videos to shoot. I think I shot one video with Michael, but that was just like the day before it even opened. So like I had
Mm.
free reign to do whatever I wanted. And what I liked about that was like I was able to dictate like what I wanted to do on
Yeah.
my own schedule, not somebody else's. And that like has its own ups and downs, right? Like, I'm not gonna lie, I had no idea what the hell I was gonna shoot. I was like, I was nervous. I was like, I don't know what they like. I don't know what, because Audio Advice never said, "Hey, we expect this or that." They were just like, "Hey, we want you there." And I was just like, "Well, I'm just gonna make some videos on like, hopefully they like them and they loved them, and they
Mhm.
want me back." They were like, "Hey, you want to come again this year? We got a room for you." And it's like, okay.
Wow.
So I'm gonna, I'm shooting a lot of stuff with Gene, but I'm also hopefully gonna be able to shoot some stuff for me, for my
Yeah.
channel. Talk to some people. But yeah, it's a different, like, I'll be interested because if I go to CD and like we kind of, hang out or whatnot. If you don't want to in person, I understand. But
Uh-huh. Yeah.
he's like, "What? What? I hate you." No, that would be cool to kind of see, because we've talked about our processes, of shooting and stuff, but also just kind of like seeing how like you work, how I work, how we could potentially like work together on something or collaborate, you know, because we do have a lot of the same interests. So it's just kind
Yeah.
of, um, I'm be interested to see like your process on like coming up with like what the hell am I going to shoot? I'm here, no idea, like let's see what happens, that kind of thing. So
What's gonna
what's gonna happen? Um, but yeah, it is, it can get exhausting. I think the bigger the show too, the more exhausting it can get, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and I think like as a general consumer, I think most people probably just go for a day or maybe two at the most. They're not there to see uh everything the show has to offer. They're there to see stuff, very specific things, right? Very
Yeah.
specific products. Um, or maybe just kind of a general, like, I'm really interested in subwoofers. I'm going to go to all the different manufacturers, see what they have to offer. They're
Mhm.
not going to like, hey, I want to go see what Legrand's got going on for all their, in wall, extensions and the lighting or whatever.
Right.
Hey, I think TP Link is over here. Let's go check them out.
Right.
So it's like they're not going over to those guys. They're going to the places where they have the most interest.
Yeah.
And 1 or 2 days, I know Taurus that was on the live stream a couple weeks
Gosh,
ago,
3 weeks ago, something like
3 weeks ago. Yeah, I think he had gone to CD at one point.
Mhm.
Just I think his theater was in the process of being built. This was a while ago, and
Mhm.
he's like, yeah, it was cool. But he's like, I don't have a reason to go again. He's
Yeah.
kind of at a point with this theater where he's kind of done, like, he's like, I don't really need any more enticing upgrades. Like, I don't,
Mhm.
he's kind of got a really nice system, doesn't want to mess with it,
Yeah. Yeah.
until 10 years down, 5 years down the road, whatever, where he might need to upgrade the projector to something more, like more better, more modern,
No
more,
better.
got, it got more nits, man. Um, so yeah, I think, but for most people, I think if you're interested in this hobby, I think it's a great, if you're in the area, like if you obviously it's just going to depend on the person too. Like
Mhm.
financially, if you got to spend $1,500 to go to one of these shows with like hotel and everything. You got to travel. It doesn't really. That's kind of harder, like more
Yeah.
difficult because that $1,500, unless you just have like a shit ton of expendable income, right? That $1,500 could be put towards a ton of home theater like stuff. Like you can put that towards speakers.
Yeah.
You can put that towards, so it's really difficult to like recommend that if you're going to spend 2 grand, $1,500, whatever, going to one of these shows just to check out some products. Yeah, I think that money might be better spent elsewhere unless you want that personal connection.
Yeah.
Then
Or
that
at
might be worth
least,
it.
like, maybe if you found that there's some, like, high-end boutique audio store that's 50 miles away, that's probably money better spent.
Yeah.
Because then you just drive there. It's just gas money,
Yep.
as opposed to a hotel and everything, so
Yeah.
I
That's
totally
what
get that, so
I loved about Florida Audio Expo. I could it's in Tampa and I'm in Central Florida, so it was like a hour and a half drive.
yeah.
And I mean, I could have went 3 days, but I just went the single day.
Mhm.
And yeah, but it's these ones that are out of state that, unless you can get like some brands to just even sponsor the trip, some brands might just go, hey, like just, yeah, if you mention, hey, like this, SVS paid for this trip, I'm just throwing out brands, but say JBL sponsored this trip or whatever, like they pay for the trip and that you just mentioned that they paid for the trip. I'm cool with that.
Yeah.
You know, they gave me money for the hotel or whatever, but I'm cool with that. Like just mention their brand. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Um, now if they're like, we want 18 videos, I'm like, it's a little much.
No.
But how about no? Uh, but yeah, I'm excited about Audio Advice Live. Um, I also like downtown Raleigh. It's really nice there. They got a lot of cool restaurants, a lot of great coffee houses.
Oh,
Um, that's the other thing too, is if it's in an area that you maybe never been or that you really like. Like I'd never been to Raleigh before last year. I don't know what's going on with my printer. It keeps making noise. I'm sorry. It's bothering the
I don't
crap
hear
out
it.
of me. That's good. It's just every once in a while it's be like, boo. Um, get get with it, HP. Come on. But
I'm
I
low on
really
ink.
right. I really like downtown Raleigh. You can kind of walk everywhere and um I know like with M Wave, people were like, oh, the barbecue is amazing. I'm not a big barbecue guy.
Yeah.
I didn't really partake in a lot of the barbecue. Um,
Right.
although if I had a nickel for the amount of people that asked me if I tried any barbecue while I was there, I'd have a shitload of nickels. I would have I was just like at some point I'm like, do you guys have anything other than barbecue in in Kansas City here? And I'm like,
Nope.
nope, no. It was just like, is there like a barbecue burger? Because I like burgers. But no, I did have some barbecue while I was there. It was really good. Um, but yeah, do you have any plans to like go to any other shows like after Cedia, or are you just kind of like thinking like one
I
step
am
at a
kinda
time?
disappointed that I missed the show down in Southern California,
Mm,
but the nice thing about the show is that it's several times a year in all different kinds of places around the country, I believe. So it's kinda cool that they're, like, expanding or having that many shows because I think it'll come back to Southern California like it did earlier this year. But, I because a lot of these expos are annual, they're just once a year. But it seems like the show is one of the few that is several times a year in a location possibly near you. So I'm excited to hopefully hit up that one. But at the same time, I mean, I'm probably going to be networking a lot at Cedia and probably just run into the same people when I go to the
yeah,
show. But that's why I do want to go to the show is so I can have that more intimate experience or possibly M Wave.
yeah,
I know Cedia is just going to be absolute chaos. So
yeah,
as far as demoing audio and demo rooms and all that stuff.
yeah. I did have an opportunity. Well, it was an opportunity that had fallen through, but it was basically like a free trip to Italy.
Whoa.
It was gonna happen back in May. I can't remember the audio show that was over there, but yeah, it was kind of like, "Are you interested in doing this?" And I was like, "Well, I don't have a passport, so I need to get on that if I want to do it." But that would have been a cool like,
Wow.
yeah. My wife Trish was like, "Oh, you have to do it if you can," and I'm like, "Okay, like I want you to come with me if you can," but
Like,
yeah, I
they
was like,
wanted to have you, like, shoot some B-roll and
"Yep,
have
yeah,
somebody.
yeah, it was yeah, it was the Fidelity Imports guys like Steve Jan, um, and some other people. I know, like, is it Brian Stout from Woody's Sound Up? Anyway,
Oh, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, it was. Sorry, I'm reading comments now.
The
I
North?
can't
Okay.
multitask, guys. Um, but yeah, that would have been a cool trip. But I mean, it didn't happen. So not saying
Yeah.
never, but
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I mean, I've never been out of the country, so
Oh, really?
no, yeah. I think my wife and I talk about this. I think we're gonna go like Ireland's probably the first place we're gonna go because like she's Irish, so she's scared to bring me there because she knows that I will love it so much and won't want to leave. And, who knows? I might be like, "Hey, we're relocating to Ireland. I'm gonna do everything with an
Sorry.
Irish accent."
Mini DSP.
Many, yeah. There's a lot of cursing in my videos at that point. I'm just always drinking like Guinness. Like I'm just let's go with every stereotypes. Um, we have Joel is here. Hello, Joel.
Hi, Joel.
He asked about us. He was like, "Did I miss the comment or the community post about no stream? This was
Mm.
last week." And I was like, "Oh crap, I
Nope.
never put that comment out." Um, yeah, I never, but we are here tonight. So, yeah, he has a general question. Do you have your AV gear go through a power conditioner? I can't even talk. A power conditioner or just a surge protector? I've seen on AV forums where they advise not to for amplifiers. The only thing that I have my AV. Okay, I'll try to break this down. So I have a battery backup that I power like the TV and like Blu-ray player, streaming stuff, like basically all the low power stuff. Cause I like,
Mhm.
battery backups are only rated for a certain amount of
Yeah.
juice
Yes.
on battery. So I just have all that stuff on a battery backup, but everything else is just routed through the surge protector on the battery backup. So like things like the PC, I think the gaming consoles and things like that, stuff that like the PC mainly because it can on occasion pull 400 or 500 watts from the wall. Um,
Whoa.
yeah, depending on how demanding
The porn is.
the point. How demanding Helldivers 2 may be on a given night. I'm gonna dive into hell tonight. But yeah, I know and then the battery backup will like, make a loud beeping noise. They do make like obviously like higher capacity units for
Sure.
that it is meant for uh like AV equipment. So like the
Mhm.
worst thing to me for AV equipment is just a sudden shut off, right? Like you power outage is like bam, things turn off, and I don't think that's really good for any equipment that has
Right.
amplifiers, TV, projectors, especially just sudden off can do repeated things like that could like wreak some havoc on electronics.
Mhm.
Um, so I try to have as many things going through a battery backup that I can, but most of it's like through some type of like surge protector. I don't have any power conditioners. Um, I really don't have the space for it. What about you, Elon? I know
Yeah.
you got some. I know you've had some like
Yeah.
hum issues that you were trying to mitigate with some power conditioners at one point, right?
No,
I'm
it
thinking
was
of somebody
mainly
else.
just the fact that every once in a while I'll have to run the generator to fill up our batteries with juice. And whenever the generator is running, um, not all the time, like it's a pretty good generator. It mostly runs clean,
Hmm.
but there are every once in a while moments where it'll kind of sputter a little bit and
Yeah.
then eventually right itself again. And during those sputter moments, the lights will kind of flicker a little bit in the house and those kinds of things. So that's why I have a power conditioner set up in my living room. But I do not have a power conditioner in my dedicated theater at my brother-in-law's place because he's on the grid. So he's got clean power all the time. Um, but it has been good to have that power conditioner in my living room because yeah, there have been moments where either the whole house, you know, goes out or yeah, we're running the generator and then it sputters and like just like that, the power conditioner will shut off all the all the electricity going to um, my AV receivers plugged into it. I did have uh, a Stark Fiera 8 amp connected to it. So all the important things, just to make sure that no crazy amounts of energy or electricity are going to those components, or they could potentially fry. So yeah, that's the time that I would suggest having one is if you don't have exactly the cleanest electricity.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say a power conditioner like improves the sound quality necessarily.
Yeah.
Unless, because I remember Shane Lee did a review on a power conditioner, and he had one of those devices that, you just kind of touch it to one of the outlets or something, and it'll tell you how much noise is in the electrical signal.
Uh-huh.
And he did, before and then after the power conditioner was hooked up, and the noise on his little noiserometer, whatever you want to call it, is
That's a technical term
was
for it, right?
much lower. So I maybe in his neck of the woods, maybe the electricity is not the cleanest. So maybe it can add some noise to your noise floor. So it can have potential um, benefits if you want to, invest in, some sort of power conditioner. Um, so yeah, maybe I would research like your particular area geographically, like your specific location. Maybe you do have, electricity that's not the cleanest for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, I think just surge protectors that should be at least part of everybody's setup is at least a surge protector so that it shuts it off at the right time if lightning strikes or something and then a huge surge goes through your whole house, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because yeah, we're all investing lots of money into these systems, so we want to protect our investments.
Yeah. And Siphonics brings up a good point as well. Something high current is
Yeah.
preferable um, because of amp draw and dynamics, right? For especially
Yep.
for amps. And like if it's kind of like you don't want to starve your receiver of power or your
Mhm.
your amps of power. Like some receivers have like an ohm setting that most people recommend never like even if you plug 4 ohm speakers into them, don't switch over to the 4 ohm setting because it's just gonna like destroy your dynamics. It's gonna
Mm.
basically just like a power limit for your speakers.
Yeah.
So like they just recommend leave it as is. I think even Audioholics have done a video on that. And Gene has way more data to back that up than I have knowledge on that subject. So I made a mistake in one video talking about ohms and watts. I'm not going to talk about that here. So, um,
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
the unique thing about I've got the PowerQuest 707 power conditioner in my living room,
Mhm. Yeah.
and the unique thing about that one is that it has a power reservoir, so it always kinda has this extra bit of wattage that it's kinda holding on to just in case there are peaks that happen,
Yeah.
so it doesn't exceed what it's capable of,
Right.
and it also has 4 high current outlets and then, like, 6 just regular outlets. So the high current ones, like, for example, that's what I plugged the Fiera 8 amp into because amps tend to draw lots of wattage.
Yeah.
That's just what they do. So yeah, that was the only one I had plugged into the high current ones, and then all the other stuff, um, my Nintendo Switch and the TV and the receiver all connected to just the normal outlets. Um, so that's pretty cool that they offer that. Although interestingly enough, uh, I turned when I had the Marantz AVR hooked up and the Fiera 8 amp powering the speakers. When I first got the PowerQuest 707, I made the mistake of plugging in the Marantz also into the high current um, outlet. So it was the Marantz and
Oh,
the amp. And we were watching something, and there was this moment where, like, there was a lot that was happening. It was like an action scene, and I think it was a car, like, ramming into something. It wasn't 2 cars, but it was a car running into, like, a pole or something,
right.
and boom, everything powered off except for the subwoofer. So all I could hear was just the "vroom, vroom, 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 vroom" of the low frequencies. Like people talking, all I heard was "vroom,
Yeah.
vroom, vroom, vroom," just the low frequencies of their
That's
voice.
hilarious.
So I that just so you know,
Yeah.
don't plug your AV receiver into the high current outlets or else it might blow some stuff or, like, just cause stuff to just
Yeah, just
turn off when it's not
yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah. That's, I mean, that's like a I used to have problems like that with, just kind of heat dissipation. Like,
Mhm.
a lot of like, back in the day, I wasn't as mindful of where I was putting things, and I knew about airflow, but I just didn't really have the space for it, and I remember I'd, like, put something in, one of my entertainment stands. This was a long time ago, and I was playing Skyrim, and I had the thing on my bow that every time I killed somebody, their soul would get trapped in a soul gem, and there's this loud, like, basically, like, crack of lightning with, like, a really heavy, like, low frequency thing, like a low frequency effect, and
Yeah.
every time that happened for the first, like, 2 days, the receiver would shut off. It was in like, it had no like, it would just, no. It's like, "It's too much power, I can't," or it's too
Mhm.
much like, the things were getting too hot, and so
Yeah.
I basically moved it from there to, like, to the side where everything around it was open and
Mhm.
never had that problem again. So, yeah, it was just like, "Oh, airflow is important," you know? Um, but I was wondering, so, like, going to CD, is there anything, like, kind of on the horizon that you're, like, wanting to look at Cedia? Or are you just kinda going for the experience?
Mostly for the experience since it'll be my first time, but I am curious. I don't know if Dirac is gonna be there. I would like to hear Dirac art
Mhm.
in person, because I heard it can be kinda weird. I mean,
I've heard the same thing from a
the
reputable source.
technology,
Yeah.
the idea is cool. The Yeah, just the fact that it will basically eliminate the need for acoustic panels. because it's your speakers that are working in tandem with each other to eliminate those reflections, etc. So, yeah, the science behind it sounds cool, but yeah, I do want to hear it in person because when it first was announced, I was like, "Oh, whoa, this is gonna revolutionize home theater, man!" Like even in your living room with just walls and stuff and terrible acoustics, you can just eliminate that with your speakers, bro. But
Yeah.
that's now I've heard that
Yeah.
yeah, it can add some kind of sonic qualities to it that might not be for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
I'm curious. I don't think I was at Stadia when they were first. It was like one of the first kind of introductions of it, I think, but I didn't hear it.
yeah.
So
Mhm.
I'd be curious. I have heard mixed things from some people. Siphonic says modular panel TVs. Yeah, I actually saw one in the original CDS. Sony had one that was like scalable to like however
Yeah.
big you wanted it, as long as you had the budget for it.
Yeah.
That is super cool.
Mhm.
Um, and then also like some new power supplies. Like he was talking about Class D tech is getting almost as good as it will be. I was actually talking to Gene about that recently because I shot and edited his Cambridge Evo 150 review.
Mhm.
And we were talking about that because like that the Cambridge Evo 150 uses a Class D amplifier and it sounds really freaking good. Like I was
Oh, wow.
surprised. I mean, yeah, he's like using some Rebels. I can't remember the model had those hooked up in there.
Mhm.
But it sounded really good. So yeah, I think as Class D progresses and it's getting there, I think like that's kind of like where the future is at.
Yeah.
Um, it should be pretty cool.
Although, to kinda go off of, the modular panel TVs,
Yeah,
I mean, I don't think it's going to be at this year's CEDIA, but I hope possibly, next year's CES 2025. I because I love the idea of modular panel TVs and being able to mix and or make whatever shape you want, really.
right.
And then you could have in this section, you're watching a movie. In this section, you can do something else. You're playing a video game, whatever. I really love that concept. My only beef with that in its current state is the fact that they're not acoustically transparent.
I knew you were gonna
If
go there because I was like, oh, I'd love it if they were.
Yeah, if you're gonna have something that big, because I would love that. I would
Yeah,
love to have that style of picture quality because then you're not having to worry about a projector
yeah,
and you're gonna have very bright picture quality. I mean, just like, maybe not quite OLED,
yeah.
right? Or at least maybe not the inky blacks you're gonna get with an
Right.
OLED
You probably
panel,
have more
but
brightness, to be honest, from like
yeah.
if it's using traditional, even like mini LED or whatever, it'll probably
Mhm,
be able to push like peak brightness really high,
mhm.
but like it may not it may I don't know, like the technology may not be there to kind of hit those inky blacks that OLEDs have.
Yeah. So
Um
that's what I would that would be my dream display, is a modular panel display that I can make as big or as small as I want, that is, that has OLED technology
yeah.
and is somehow acoustically transparent. You know,
Yeah.
that would be the dream because
That's a
then I
yeah.
could put speakers behind it like a traditional home theater setup, and it's got incredible quality, incredible brightness, and it's gigantic.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
that would be my dream.
I think it's I've had an OLED going on a couple years now, and it's really hard for me to go one back to like just like LED, like
Yeah.
I would have to look at like a mini LED. But I'm so like the really the OLED motion is what I've kind of grown accustomed to and how everything
Mhm.
looks, especially playing like high refresh rate games at like
Yeah.
120 with like turning off motion blur, and it's like, yeah, you get basically 120 pure frames that it just looks so like it literally I don't know, it just looks so good. Um, like 120 is kind of like I think it eventually going forward is like, yeah, that should be like the minimum. I mean, we're not talking about consoles here. Sorry, guys. We're talking about like PC because consoles can barely hit 60 these days. Well, on most games, but like 120, even on like a single player experience, like I used to be one of those people that like it doesn't really like above 60, like or like 16 above, I'm good with, and I'm kind of getting to that point now where like I want more. Like I don't. I
Mhm.
got so used to like above that. So like seeing displays with like higher refresh rates like 240 or 360. I mean, yeah, we don't really have the technology right now. Maybe a 4090 could push some games with like 240, but
Mhm.
more like modern games like Cyberpunk with path tracing or Alan Wake 2, they're not going to be able to hit 240 on those cards, even with
No.
like DLSS and frame gen. Um, but, in a couple years, maybe as the technology in the cards, gets better and we see every year like a increase in performance, heck, going from like the graphics card I had, which was like came out in 2020 to like one that came out this year, the 4070 Super, I was just like the performance is insane, like the difference.
Mm.
And I would love to see, TVs that are capable or more TVs that are capable of like those high refresh rates. Although it seems like LG, especially for OLEDs, is starting to remove certain features from their OLEDs going forward, like OLED Motion Pro, which is like black frame insertion.
Oh.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with that, it's basically a frame inserted every other frame. So what it
Mhm.
does is it d- uh, dramatically decreases like blurring from motion, kind of gives it more of like a CRT feel to it,
Oh.
like in terms of motion clarity. But
Mhm.
it does reduce the brightness significantly. So it's
Yeah.
not as much as it used to, mind you, but like it still isn't something that I would probably use for HDR gaming. And that's another thing is like I want to see every game support HDR. I want to see better
Yeah.
HDR implementation, not just from games, but also from like, you know, TVs and displays, like having better peak brightness. And, I think I'm wondering if companies have started going, you know what, like 8K isn't really doing anything for us. Like, should we kind of go
Honestly,
back?
yeah.
Because I don't see a ton of like 8K news, right? Like,
Mhm.
where yeah, I mean, there are 8K sets, but I think I would love to see a company just go, you know what, 4K is good enough. Let's just go balls to the wall and try to maximize what we have on the market.
Yep.
You know, I think
Because I mean, the content itself will never, at least for the next 10 years, probably never, ever, ever be rendered in 8K.
right.
If anything, 8K TVs are gonna like they're solely used for upscaling 4K content.
Yep,
And I think that's just kind of silly.
it is.
you know? Like maybe it does have this incredible picture, but yeah, just the amount of money, especially with like CGI. There's
Yeah,
no possible way. I'm pretty sure they still render CGI at 2K, even in movies now,
a lot of movies. Yeah,
because rendering CGI in 4K would bog down every system out there. Just editing a movie in 4K is you have to have a really high performing computer system to do that.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, just pour more money into 4K. you know,
yeah, for real,
yeah,
for real. And then look at upping the panel refresh and better HDR. Um, you know, VRR is a big thing for like gaming and stuff too.
Yeah.
I will say that with
Yeah,
things
like
like,
Siphonics mentioned,
oh yeah,
AK bandwidth is useful for ALL and
yeah.
VRR,
So auto low
but
latency and VRR. Yeah. I mean, those two things have been kind of game changing. Well,
mhm,
VRR mostly. ALL is just kind of like a nice to have, that basically automatically triggers like the auto low latency mode on your display.
yeah,
But like VRR, I don't play any game without VRR. Like it's just a way to you don't really notice any frame rate fluctuations. It's just like
right,
whatever the GPU can spit out up until like, your panel's refresh rate, it's gonna look smooth unless you drop down below that threshold. But
mhm,
overall, it's like I don't want to play a game without it unless it's a game that just does not support anything. Like there's older games that you can't go above 60 on, like Skyrim is one. Like it's capped at 60.
mm,
The whole physics system is tied to the frame rate. So you try to go above that by forcing it, you break the physics engine and dialogue ends up getting weird and things just happen that yeah, it's just a really old engine, but
mhm,
I mean, as technology is progressing, I mean, we have things like Unreal Engine 5 that's used for like major motion pictures and TV shows, like all the stuff in the volume
yeah,
that's rendered in um like The Mandalorian and The Acolyte and things like that is all done in
right,
pretty much Unreal Engine 5.
yeah,
Um
yeah,
so they're taking out what's great about that is they could shoot something in 4K, 6K, 8K. Obviously there are different benefits for actually shooting something in a higher resolution, right? Like instead
oh,
of just
sure,
but they could shoot in that and most of the visual effects on set are done in camera. Like,
yep,
they may have some green screen stuff they need to do later. I mean, it's whatever, but they don't really have to do any of that green screen work, for the set extensions or whatever, because it's all there in camera, which is great.
mhm,
And Unreal Engine 5 is even getting to the point now where like a lot of companies are using it to make CGI for movies and
yeah,
TV shows because it utilizes and leverages the graphics card far more than just CPU. Like
mhm,
I think that's something that I'd always wanted to explore when I didn't have didn't have the money to way back in the day was like why are all these CPU or all these like CGI programs like Blender and everything they just they use the GPU for rendering the viewport but then once you actually render the final scene it's all CPU based. And I'm
yeah,
like there are tasks that could be offloaded to the graphics card even back in the day
mhm,
that would be far quicker to render out. And now we're finally getting there where like we can do 4K CGI in a fraction of the time we used to be able to with a $1,500 graphics card that 10 years ago you'd probably need a render farm to get even close to the same amount
mhm,
of like render power. It's crazy. I
yeah,
mean, the
yeah,
phones we have in our pockets are like supercomputers compared to like what we had 15 years ago.
mhm.
So I,
'Cause I
I'm
don't even think, as far as I know, I don't even think Pixar movies are rendered in 4K. Um,
no, I think it might be closer to like 2.7K or something like that, something
yeah,
just slightly above. But I don't know. I mean, I'd be really curious to see. Like, I know like when they did the kind of Toy Story 1, 2, and 3 remaster, they went back to the source files and actually rendered those out in 4K. Um,
sure.
but they didn't change anything. They just updated the output resolution. So yeah,
Yeah.
you technically got more clarity. However, all the textures still look like they did in the original
Oh,
movie,
yeah,
if
for sure.
maybe not slightly worse because of the higher resolution.
I know.
It's like you could see things. You're like, hmm,
I know we, just the other night, one of my daughters suggested Toy Story 1, the first one,
yeah,
just because it had been so long since we'd watched it. It's
yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, let's do that." And yeah, we're just watching it on our 75-inch Samsung TV, and yeah, I mean, it just looks so outdated, just the colors and the textures and the skin and everything. I mean, it's wild how far they've come since,
Yeah.
what was it, 95 when that came out? So,
Yeah,
I mean,
95, 96. Yeah.
yeah, that's yeah, I mean, it's still it looks great for what it's worth. But yeah, that I kind of geek out on that kind of stuff where, I remember when Toy Story 3 came out in the theaters, I was blown away by just comparing it to Toy Story 1 as far as the advancements that had happened in creating stories like that with CGI, and
Yeah.
just the textures and the foliage and the lighting and how the lighting hits certain things, and just it's incredible how far
It
we've come.
it is. I mean, Toy Story 4 would just look like it l it looked like they just filmed real dolls.
Yeah, and like
And
the far away, or like the scenic shots, like landscape shots, especially when they're like showing the fair or whatever was going on where Little Bo Peep was staying.
yeah.
It looked pretty much photorealistic. It's
Yeah.
like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And
This
it's
is
like
cool.
so much advancement has been made in like material development and rendering, like the actual
Mhm.
like so they use like physically based they call them like PBO or like basically physically based objects. So they basically take real properties, right? And they're like, "Oh, like this is how this surface reacts to light, and is this reflective?" And like there's a lot more that goes into it, but like I think that combined with the increase in like lighting power that they have now,
Mhm.
because if you watch that first Toy Story, right, the lighting is very flat.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like they just had like one light, but they were doing what nobody else did at the time,
Mhm.
for stuff like that. Um, you watch the first movie and then the final one, and it's like just a stark difference.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. It's so crazy.
Yeah.
Jose, I don't know if I'm gonna get a PS5 Pro, man. I uh I just don't know. There's got to be something really, really compelling for me to want to do that. I,
Is it
I'll,
really gonna be that much better?
I'll be honest. Since I've upgraded to my PC to like a 4070 Super and upgraded the CPU, I basically haven't turned the PS5 on or the Series X on since January, December, something like that. I just don't think that the PS5 Pro will be anywhere close to what I can do on PC in the current thing that I have
Mhm.
in my current system. Um, because I think the PS5 Pro has been in development for quite a while.
Yeah.
Um, it will be an improvement, but I don't think we're gonna. I'd be really like I don't know how much improvement we will see, and it's
Yeah.
still like on the table. But 8K is out of the question. 4K 120 for some games probably going to be, yeah, but for other games, I don't think any of it really is going to be native 4K. I think it's all going to be upscaled,
Yeah.
probably from like a 1440p or 1080p, which isn't if they because I know that Sony has been working on their own upscaler, kind of like what Nvidia does with their DLSS. So it's like
Mhm.
an AI based
Yeah.
upscaling algorithm thing, that can look really good if done right. So I'm all for that, and I hope that it ends up being a great console. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, I don't see myself grabbing one, especially at launch at what they might launch for, which is not going to be $400. I'd probably put money on it not being $400 or $500. It's probably gonna be closer to six, I would think. But
Yeah.
I mean, that's just me. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I think we're going to answer this final question here. Wrap it up, guys. Thank you, everyone, for joining and hanging out with us. We've had a lot of fun
Yeah.
talking about this stuff. So, this question from PK Hamu 2005. Please let us know your best and not so best Expo experience so far.
I'll go first since
Yeah.
I've only been to CES 2023. But I kinda hit on it before. earlier in the stream, where it was great to be able to listen to the Nakamichi Dragon for the first time, and then also the experience we had with Sven Mevison from DTS slash IMAX. That was really fun. And then there was this kind of like mixer that I was invited to, where I got to actually meet Giles for the first time, Giles
Oh,
McCoy,
yeah.
and but we had already known each other, at least online, so it was just really cool getting to interact with him in person. Because, I mean, he's exactly who I thought he was, and, we hit it off immediately. But, but yeah, at that mixer, I was able to get in contact with Sennheiser because I had wanted to, review the Ambio Max for a long time. So I finally got an email to somebody who could help me out with that because they were at this mixer. So those opportunities were really cool. As far as, like, not so great, just CES in general, just how visually and sonically overstimulating it is.
Yeah.
And I, like, because I remember I had a plan. I was like, "All right, I'm just gonna go out and I'm gonna take my microphone, I'm gonna take my video camera, and I'm gonna film some stuff." And it was just overwhelming. I'm like, "I don't know, should I film this? Should I film that? Should I don't even know where to begin." So that was kind of the rough part about CES,
Yeah.
is just there's just too much, literally too much. And even like some of the big players like Sony or something, they had this huge corner in the convention center, but it was obviously so crowded and everybody just wanted to play on their PS5s that they had available for
Yeah.
anyone to just hop on. Um, sure, they had some TVs and stuff, but yeah, there was just so many people there. So it just, you're constantly having to fight with this flow of bodies wherever you go. So that was part of the CES experience that wasn't all that great, that I didn't
Yeah.
enjoy all that much. But but yeah, just the other things that I was able to experience because I was there with Techno Dad made it totally worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll kind of piggyback off of what what you said about being there with like Techno Dad. When I went to Cedia, this is my best experience. My best and worst experience was also at Cedia in
Mhm.
2022.
Yeah.
So like having never been to one of these shows before, these events, I went with Michael. I helped him shoot a bunch of stuff. I was basically his camera operator, and we did a sponsored brand video for Sony. They had paid Michael to shoot a video, so we shot with a gentleman named Andrew. Andrew's super nice guy. I've seen him in a couple different conventions, expos, events, whatever over the years. But like, so this is like the way the Sony booth was set up. They had like all of these TVs and things, and like their receivers and stuff outside, and then in the middle they had two demo rooms, and they
Oh.
had like basically like lines to both of these demo rooms. Like they were just, this was on a Saturday, busiest day, people were just like lined up. It was like a theme park. They wanted to see these
Jeez.
demos, right?
Yeah.
So we were shooting this video, and I felt so bad for the people, but I also felt like a VIP because we needed to shoot in both of those rooms. So the people waiting had to wait. They shut off the room, like each room individually, one at a time. So the
Mhm.
first room, we went in because we were shooting. We shut that room down for like 45 minutes because we were shooting a video, and it
Mhm.
was like it was just us in this room that pretty much is always packed full of people, and it felt
Yeah.
like a VIP experience, right? Like I could shoot all the
Mhm.
B-roll I wanted. They were just like, take your time, do it, and it was the same in the other room. That was like the best
Wow.
experience. Also, the demos were cool because we got basically demos of this stuff alone with no one else in the room but like us and the rep. Like
Right.
that was it. You don't really get that
Yeah.
at all in these shows unless you're part of like a press thing. Um, so that was like my best experience, was kind of feeling like I was a VIP. They also like Sony had this little behind like their big wall of like their modular panel. They
Mhm.
had a like a door that was like for Sony employees only. And they're like, "Oh yeah, guys, just go hang back in there." And they had like a cooler with beer and drinks and all this like and like snacks. And they're like, "Yeah, have whatever you want."
Damn,
And I
that's
was
cool.
just like inside this massive ass, like big set, like I don't remember where it was. It was at like the Dallas Convention Center or something. But like in CD, it's all busy. We're just chilling in the back of this, in like their little Sony employee only room. And I'm just like eating a bag of chips. And it was like, you don't get you like that was just such a cool experience. The worst experience I had was when I had my free day on Sunday where I like didn't have anything to go do.
Mhm.
I wanted to go. They had a television calibration kind of booth with like Meridio and like basically it's like colorimeters and spectroradiometers and all this like TV calibration equipment, pattern generators. I'm like, I want to go like check this stuff out, maybe talk to someone, see if I can't make some connections. And it was this older gentleman. I don't remember his name, but he could not be more bothered by the fact that I was there talking to him. He
Oh,
had
no.
it was like such an elitist attitude
Mm.
because I was like talking to him about my channel and how like, yeah, people always like want to know about audio calibration, but like video calibration is even more important. And he just could not be like more unenthused by my conversation. And he honestly, I think he thought I was like I don't know what he thought. But I was
Yeah.
genuinely like curious and it just completely turned me off to like, you know, this particular person
Yeah.
because he was all about like, well, we're more about, he was like, we're more about Hollywood, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, but what about the people that actually watch your stuff
Yeah.
at home in home theaters? Like you care about them, like don't you want their experience to be as close to the creator's intent as possible? He just Yeah, that was like, I go, well, I'm never working with that guy. I don't want to talk to that guy anymore. So
Yeah.
um yeah, that is that was my worst experience that I've had, unfortunately. um So, yeah, I
Right.
do see one
Yeah.
other question I'll address really quick, asking for feedback on Magic Bean. So, I've talked to Joe and Tell about this. Unfortunately, right now, just do not have the time to invest in what I want to do with it. I'm having
Yeah.
trouble making videos on my own right now, working on other stuff. So I've kind of had to shelve the Magic Bean stuff for a little while. I was running into some issues that I don't want to blame on the software because I don't know if it was my error. And so I need to send some stuff over to Joe to kind of take a look at
Yeah.
that. I I wasn't able to really use it because I noticed some problems with the correction. But again, I kind of ran through this stuff once and I didn't have time to retest and like do a bunch of measurements. And like I just ended up going back to my uh, original multi QX calibration that I had that I knew sounded good. That was all like manually tweaked EQs and stuff.
Yeah.
So I just went to scratch my head, but I scratched my headphones instead. So
Well, they're on your head.
that's true. That is true. It's part of me now.
Yes.
But yeah, so that is my feedback. I'm not saying don't get it. I'm saying I don't know if what I was experiencing was because of me or
Yeah.
not.
Yeah.
So it could be user error. So like take that, you know, with what I say with a grain of salt. So
If we had a graphic, we put a big TBD right here.
to be determined. So yeah, I can't say yay or nay on Magic Beans, unfortunately, right now. I hope to be able to revisit it at a later point, but it might be next year when I get to it. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, anyway, that's it. I think that's gonna wrap it up. Do you have any closing comments, concerns, questions, Elon?
Um, Yesterday, it's not hooked up, but it is. My wife helped me put it in place in the theater. But the Sony Bravia 8 OLED TV is now in the theater. So I'm very excited about that. Although, before I do that review, I am, because of vacations and other stuff that's been going on, I am far behind on a few other products that I need to review that are somewhat time sensitive. So I'm hopefully going to be able to get those done in the next couple of weeks, possibly even like batch some of those so that I can schedule out. Um, but yeah, finally, it's probably not going to be till mid August or something when I actually start to test out the Bravia 8. But also, I'm kind of waiting for the heat to die down as well,
Yeah.
since I don't have an air conditioner in that theater. But I'm very excited to at least see what it can do, how it compares to the C9 OLED my LG C9 OLED that I had in there for several years. But more importantly, since it is a Sony TV, since it does support IMAX Enhanced, I can finally test out Disney Plus
Yeah.
DTSX, which I have not been able to do, even though I said it's coming to so many people out there. And it was quite a popular video too. People are very excited that it's something else besides Atmos, but disappointing that it's only on select TVs right now. So yeah, hopefully, end of August, September sometime that I can finally get around to Sony TV stuff because there'll be a few videos centered around it.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome, man. Well, I think I don't really. I mean, I'm going to Audio Advice Live, so I'm trying to work on those 4 videos. Gonna try to schedule them week to week, so I'll have at least a month of content there. If I can squeeze out like a Audio Advice Live video or two in there, it'd be great.
Yeah.
So yeah, keep on the lookout for that. I want to get through all of this stuff so I can actually start making fun videos again and get back in a swing, man.
Yay.
Yeah. So awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. That's going to do it for this week. Hopefully, we'll see you here again next week. It's kind of tentative now with the things going on. I do fly out next Wednesday for Audio Advice Live, so I'm hoping we can do a show Tuesday night. But we shall see. So thank you everyone for
Woo.
watching this week, and we will
Yes,
catch
thank you.
you. What?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. No, thank you.
No,
Thank you,
thank
Elon.
you.
Thank you. That's how we end every show now. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us. We will hopefully catch you next week. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to get notifications. Don't forget to subscribe. Click on the bell to get notifications.